Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Mychaladrian. I run a website called Mychaladrian.com. And today I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. So let's go ahead and dive in. I currently live in Houston, Texas, but let me tell you all about where I've lived because, man, that is a list. I was actually born in Great Falls, Montana. My dad was in the Air Force, and so that is where he happened to have been stationed. And I had the pleasure of living there until I was 4 years old, and then I went ahead and moved down to Houston. Now, I've been in Texas most of my life. I grew up in Houston. I was homeschooled for the first 12 or almost 13 years of my life. And during that time, I lived in Houston. I was in choir, I did different things, so I definitely got to socialize, but it was just interesting being homeschooled for sure. We moved to Dallas-Fort Worth when I was about 12 years old, and I had the opportunity to join the Texas Boys Choir, which was at the Fort Worth Academy of Fine Arts. And that was awesome. Number one, because it was the first time I had ever gotten to really be in a classroom environment, right? So like I mentioned, I was homeschooled, so it was really fun to get to just socialize with people, be around different kids, things like that. It definitely came with its struggles. I have to say, if I named out top 3 hardest times of my life, I would say 8th grade was definitely one of those, and so that was during that time frame. But it also brought a lot of joy to my life. I got to travel the country at the age of 12 and 13 because being in the Texas Boys Choir, we toured nationally. I remember we would go on tour for 3 to 4 months at a time. We had a tutor that came with us to make sure we were doing our schoolwork. And so it was cool, and I think I thrived in that environment just because I had already been homeschooled, and so I was used to going on the road and doing that kind of thing. Now, fast forward a couple more years, I went into high school. So 9th and 10th grade, we lived in Arlington, Texas, and so I got to go to Arlington High School. During that time, we also lived in Plano. So I got to go to Plano High School. Yeah, I ended up actually going to 3 different high schools, y'all. Second half of 10th grade came, I moved to Washington, D.C. I think growing up, moving around so much, it was great. We did it because of my dad's work. My dad is a video producer, and so, just with that job, new opportunities would come, and so we moved. Whenever I went to Washington, D.C., man, that's when I really got to become myself, I guess you could say. I was super artistic during that time. I remember senior year, I took, I think it was 6 different music classes, which was great. Got to play a little bit around with the jazz band, got to play drums and piano in that, got to play drums in the gospel choir. I sang in different choirs, and I just loved it. During that time of my life, music was 1000% my passion. And that was awesome. And I remember I ended up making a decision to go into the Marine Corps. That was one of the hardest decisions of my life. And it was, man, it was a lot. I'm not gonna even lie. Boot camp was definitely a lot to go through. But I made it through, and I was super, super proud. I ended up getting stationed in Okinawa, Japan. And I was in Okinawa, Japan for almost 3 years. And then while I was in Okinawa, Japan, I was getting ready to go to Afghanistan. I got attached to a unit that was going to deploy to Afghanistan. I was a cook in the Marine Corps, so I was going to be cooking for these guys. And I remember I went through all the training and everything, and then it got to the pre-deployment physical, and come to find out I actually had stage 3 seminoma testicular cancer. I remember that day, wow, that was a lot. I remember I had to give my mom a call and tell her hey mom, I have cancer. I'm gonna be going into surgery in an hour. And I ended up having surgery to remove some of the masses. But at that point, it was already stage 3. It had spread to about 14, 15 of my abdominal lymph nodes. And so I ended up getting moved to San Diego. I lived at Balboa Naval Center. During that time, I made some really, really great friends, got to reconnect with some friends from Okinawa that happened to be stationed there that were really there for me during that time. I also remember I went through, I think it was 4 rounds of chemotherapy, and so I would go through and I would do a week of chemo, and then I would get to go home for 3 weeks and recover. The Marines at that time were super nice to me. They knew how much I was going through, and so I would get to go home and spend time at home. Now, every round I didn't always get to go home for that time period, but there were a few times I got to. Also during that time is when my mental health started to get kind of bad. And I'll make a whole separate video on mental health and just like the journey I've been through on that and just some of the things that I've overcome. But I remember that was a really tough time for obvious reasons. And my brain just handled it in a different way. Fast forward a couple more years, I got out of the Marine Corps and tried to live in California for about 6 months or so. But it was really hard to make money, and so I ended up moving to Texas. I ended up coming to Texas and I cooked at a retirement center. That was fun. That's when I first moved back to Houston, and that was great. I ended up having the opportunity to move to East Texas a couple years later, and that's when I got hired to work for the company Zoomies. I ended up staying with Zoomies for about 7 years. Ended up becoming a store manager of the highest volume store that they have in the Texas, Oklahoma area. The Bay Brick Mall, Webster, Texas, where I currently live now. And that was really fun. During that time, I got to build teams. I got to help create store managers and assistant managers and do inventories and make sales. And man, it was just fun. I got to meet a lot of celebrities during that time and got to go to different company events and just meet brand owners and just see a different side of business I had never seen before. This was super fun. Also during this time is when I had my first creative collective in Dallas called Diplomats of Steez. We would meet up and do different photo shoots and street photography, and we got to work with different brands, and it was just a really good time. Also during that time I would throw DJ days at Zoomies. I had a lot of friends that I still have that DJ, and so I would go ahead and have them come into my store and we would actually do DJ days, and it was super fun, gave them exposure. I mean, how many times do you get hired to like go play at a Zoomies in a mall? It was really cool and helped bring traffic in, and I just, I cherish those memories, super fun. And then I ended up, like I said, getting promoted. I came back down to Webster, Texas, and I ran the highest volume store that Zoomies had. That was super fun, and then I ended up needing a change, and so I put my feelers out there, and that's where I found the job I currently work at. I work at Apple now, and I love it. I absolutely love it. When I got hired at Apple, I was a technical specialist, and then I became a specialist, so I was the guy that like helps you get a new phone or iPad in the front of the store. Then I became a creative, and that's my current role that I have right now, although I am at an internship, but I am a creative, and so what a creative does is we teach classes at Apple. If you ever need to learn something, you can go to apple.com/today. Gotta plug the job. And we teach you all types of different stuff, from like getting to know your phone or iPad or watch, or just like learning how to unlock that creativity with photography or videography, music, coding, all the different things that you can do on your devices. I also remember, and this is just recently, you know, when the pandemic hit, we ended up being blessed to get to work from home. I'm so grateful for Apple and the opportunity they gave us. I ended up working at home as a technical specialist, helping customers all over the world. It was great. I got to meet some amazing people from all over the country during that time, got to mentor people and be a mentor for my team. And then, yeah, that led me to what I'm doing now. So I still work at the same store in Webster at Apple, but now I am I have what's called an ISE, an in-store experience, or otherwise known as an internship, right? And so what I am, I'm the training lead. So I get to lead on the floor and do training for the whole store. I'm in charge of making sure that all of my coworkers and fellow leadership get all the training done that they need to do, and that's been great. I get to be the guy that like onboards people and teaches them all the different ways of Apple, and I couldn't ask for anything else. I definitely look forward to us getting to teach again and getting to go back down that role. But yeah, that's a quick snapshot of my life. I know I talked a lot about work during that time in school. Just know that throughout all of that, and still currently, I'm creative. I post weekly, every single Friday. I always put out a new video or blog post. Sometimes I sprinkle little stuff in on Mychaladrian.com as well. I know this past week I made a fun little cooking video. But yeah, that's me. I definitely look forward to just like talking about myself more. There's a lot about me that I haven't put out there that I would love to tell you guys about. So if there's any questions that you have for me, I would love for you to leave them down below, and maybe I can make a video of just answering some of those questions and responding. But as always, I appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't already, please subscribe. You can do that down below. Check out Mychaladrian.com. That's Mychaladrian. Definitely spell my name a little bit different, but I love it. And as always, peace, love, and namaste. Have a great day. Thank you.